And welcome everybody to Apocrypha Apocalypse. I am Gary Michuta, and we're here for yet another chill stream. Great to be with you today, early morning, Detroit area, and welcome aboard everybody. Yes, we are doing another chill stream. By the way, if you don't know what a chill stream is, I call it chill stream because basically it's 3:30 in the morning here in the Detroit area, and my family's asleep, so I gotta be very quiet. Hence the low tones of the chill stream, but hopefully it's still coming through to you and keeping you awake and interested and engaged in the material. And indeed, how can you not be engaged in the material? We're talking about Origen of Alexandria, and we're just starting. So if you're coming new to this series, we've already done one program where we did a little introduction about Origen of Alexandria and started looking at his list. And by the way, Origen is almost always the first early church father that is listed. Well, actually, he's not an early church father, he's an ecclesiastical writer, but he's always the first one mentioned in Protestant apologetics as someone who rejected the so-called Apocrypha. And we're going to look at that because, like I said, he's the first, in some ways, the most important. And we're very fortunate because even though a very small percentage of his writings have survived the ages, he wrote so much that we have a ton of information that we can look into, which means we have a ton of things to analyze for him. So not only do we have a list, we also have an exchange of letters between him and Julius Africanus, actually about the deuterocanonical sections in Daniel. We're going to break that down in a future chill stream. Also, he used the Deuterocanon profusely in his works. So we're going to have to analyze his usage. That's going to take a little while to see whether he believed that these things were scripture capable of confirming doctrine, or was it just edifying material? And then we are going to look at qualifications because we have so much information from Origen, we do find him occasionally qualifying things, and also Protestant apologists will focus in on those qualifications and use that as evidence against his acceptance of the Deuterocanon. But as always, here on the Apocrypha Apocalypse, we got to dive into sources. We're going to analyze things. We're going to examine them in context. In fact, we're going to do a lot of context examination with Origen because there's a lot of distortions when it comes to him. And then we're going to decide whether he really is the first witness to the Protestant canon. So that's going to be a ton of fun. It's going to be a series here on the Apocrypha Apocalypse. We're going to take our time. We're not in any big hurry. And I'd rather go through this material in depth with you so that you're armed and you're ready and you can give an explanation for the hope that's in you. That's why we do what we do here on the Apocrypha Apocalypse. And that's why I'm up at 3:30 in the morning, besides the fact that the Lord wakes me up at 2 a.m. recently. It's just great to be able to give you this information. And it's also a ton of fun just diving into this information by myself. I've been studying this for a few decades now, and I'm always finding new things and new insights. So I want to share that with you ASAP, and so you can use it in your dialogues with non-Catholics that reject these books. And hopefully they'll accept the full word of God. And that will be a tremendous accomplishment, I think. So, hey, before we begin, as we do here on the chill streams, I want to welcome all of you aboard in the chat room. By the way, please remember, subscribe, like, hit the bell. That helps with the algorithm. We really appreciate it if you could do it. It's free. There's no calories. It's gluten-free. It only takes a click of a mouse, but you can help get us exposed on the algorithm and cut through some of all the traffic out there. Because I think this is probably the most important issue that separates Catholics from Protestants and Catholics from rabbis. It's not, of course, the issue with them, but it is an important issue that you can explore when talking to Jewish people as well. So like, subscribe, hit the bell, because you never know when a chill stream is going to happen. Also, if you want to support this ministry, please consider being a member. We have a lot of fun in our members. Yesterday was Sunday, and every Sunday in the afternoon, I open up the stream to members only. So you can ask any question. We talk about any topic. We had some really great discussions last Sunday. You could be a part of that as a member. So Sundays, it's usually around 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. We get together. I open it up. Also, if you're interested in supporting us on Patreon, William Albrecht and myself are both on Patreon. We appreciate your support. And we give goodies. William's always putting stuff up for his patrons. I try to, but there's just no way I could keep up with William. But anyway, one of the benefits I do have for my patrons, besides free ebooks and other material, is as soon as I'm done with the chill stream, I jump on Patreon and I upload the PDF presentation. So if you're a patron, you have access to this library of PDFs and chill streams that you can take your time and work through, and you could use the material in your own apologetics. So I'm thrilled and pumped to be able to do that. And I'm thrilled and pumped to see our good friend Reason Belief is in the house, and he's thrilled and pumped as well. So Reason Belief, hey, welcome aboard, my friend. I hope everything is going A-OK across the pond over there. I hope you're feeling well, and also been in my prayers as well. Lino, great to see you. James Day from Singapore, thank you. Hello, and welcome aboard, my friend. Tomorrow's the Feast of Our Lady of the Rosary. Awesome. That is awesome. We get our questions answered. Yes, that's right. I left on a cliffhanger, about as much of a cliffhanger as you can have when it comes to Old Testament canon. And that is namely, Origen misses the 12 minor prophets in his list, and he includes Maccabees. So what's going on there? How is it that we account for these weird things? So we're going to look at that in depth. Hopefully, I will at least give you my theory. Of course, all we can do is just look at the evidence and try to come up with our own theory that seems to explain everything. So I'll give you mine, and we'll look at the evidence for that. And if you have different ideas, I'd love to hear them, because no one really has the solution. And basically, you just look at the cards on your table and see what you can do. Hey, Justified Janice is in the house. Welcome aboard. Good member of the chill stream. That's right. 1 Peter 3:15, baby. You got it. Absolutely. James Day says, I'm going to wait for more inspiration about the secret word. Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, we'll pool our, pull our resources and see if we can come up with some. Yes. Sokel is in the house. Well, greetings, Sokel. You're up late, and glad you could be on board. Hopefully you'll enjoy this. I am not going to look at this or this, because then I hear Sam Shamoon's voice in my head singing the theme song to the Gary Shanley show. And you just can't get that out of your head, folks, once it's in there. At least not me. And we got our first super chat. So thanks, James Tay. You rock as always. Appreciate it. Gary's Patreon is better than Williams. I didn't read this beforehand. Is better than Williams in that we actually get slides, unlike William, who gives us exclusive videos with no slides. Protestants have Protestant dilemma with Sola Scriptura. Yeah, they do have a dilemma. I didn't know about that. I don't know why William doesn't do that, by the way. It's not that hard. I don't know. I should pass that along. But then again, I'll lose the one exclusive perk that you get if you support me on Patreon. But I appreciate that, James. I appreciate the super chat. So yeah, I do my best to spoil not only members here on YouTube, but also my patrons. And I wish I could do more. But between research, doing chill streams, doing online stuff, book manuscripts, interviews, did an interview with Truth Matters with SJ. That was really awesome. She's a very good interviewer. Um, it's so hard, but whenever I can, I always try to get some more info. Plus, research takes an awful lot of time, and unfortunately, um, I want it to be good research. I just don't want to find something and throw it out there. I want to make sure it's solid and try to give as complete of a presentation as possible. And since you spend so much time researching, it seems like you're not doing anything with the supporters because they don't get very much. Um, but you're actually doing a lot of work behind the scenes. Hence, like the chill stream, all these things I've been working with like over a year, not over a year, over a couple of decades. And I'm always adding new things and so on. But it's hard when you're having supporters to give them the proof of your work. It's only once you have a presentation that you can see the work. But that's why I appreciate your support, all guys. And also adding stuff to the chat room. And by the way, I came up with an idea in our discussion yesterday with members only. One reason we get a lot of lurkers, and that's cool because I lurk a lot. In fact, I'm always on Sam Shamoon's channel. I think I went on the chat once in years. I don't even remember. Yeah, I think it was only once I put a comment in there. But I lurk because I listen and I learn, right? And I know there's a lot of people lurking out there. But there is one detriment to not posting in the chat room. And that is every now and then we'll get some very generous supporters, especially on our team streams, where they'll gift memberships. And it occurs to me, if you're lurking out there and you never actually put anything in the chat room, not only do we not know that you're out there, but you miss an opportunity to get a free gift membership from somebody. And I don't know why I haven't thought about that before, but that's a great reason to put something in the chat. Plus, putting something in the chat helps the algorithm, I guess. No one really knows the mysterious algorithm of YouTube. But anything you can do to get this channel out and get this information out to the people that need to know it is greatly appreciated, not only by me, but also by those people that receive it. So tell your friends about the channel. Spread the word. We are currently we're still at 13.1K. Don't know why. Once we passed the, it's weird with subscriptions. And some of you guys that have channels, I wonder if you have the same experience. It's like when you reach a certain level of subscriptions, then it explodes and you start growing at a fast pace. And then you think, oh, cool, we reached this plateau and now the stream's going to really explode. And then all of a sudden it just like cuts off. And then you just get a trickle of subscriptions until you like cross another point. And then all of a sudden you have another explosion and you think, hey, this is really going to take off. And then it goes to a trickle again. It's weird. And that's kind of what we're at right now. We crossed, we exploded. We got to 15.1K, but now we're like halfway to 15.2K, and there's now a lot of subs. So if you haven't subbed, please do. And if you know somebody that's interested in apologetics or interested in the Bible or interested in the issue of the canon, it's greatly appreciated if you could tell them about the channel, right? Send them a link, share it, or even put it on your channel. That would be awesome. The more, the better, the happier. Yes. Let's see. So yeah, I want to hear what you guys have to say. Reason belief. I'm not sure what that. Oh wait, how did I miss that? Wait, I'm way behind in the chat room. Sorry, folks. James, sometimes I think you have an evil streak in you. Although I like the Gary Chandler idea and that it's just Sam's voice singing the theme song. That's the part that's a little grating. I second. Man, Hollywood Big Boss, how could you do that to me? By the way, make a cool thumbnail too. What do you guys think of today's thumbnail? There you go. A member yesterday, and by the way, this is one of the perks of being a member, suggested I do a thumbnail based on Star Trek 2. Here, let me get this completely off. And this one turned out really well. So I'm Commander Data up front. William is Picard. And like I predicted yesterday on the members only stream, AI loved William as Picard, probably because it's really easy to map on his head to Picard's head. And poor David, David Zavaris is, I forgot what the guy's name is, the Klingon in the back. It's hilarious. Hopefully David has a good sense of humor. But so what do you guys think of this thumbnail? I'm pretty proud of it. It came out really nice. Okay. So anyway, James Tay, hey, talk about gifting memberships. Thank you, James. And Lone Wolf and Cub. That is the person that received the gift membership. So James, hey, thank you. Thank you for leading by example. I appreciate that. That happens in many channels. Okay, so yeah, it's weird. It's like certain things it will explode, certain things it won't. Who knows what's going on with the algorithm? But hey, I just want to get the information out. I don't really care that much about subs, unless getting subs is going to get the information out. Then I care about it. I like them. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And yeah, William fits in so good. I know it's scary. Actually, I look pretty good as Commander Data too. That I don't know if that's a compliment or an insult, but apparently I make a good. I don't know what Commander Data is. Is he a robot, cyborg? I'm not sure what he is. I was never into Star Trek, the second generation thing. I just checked mine for the first time in a while, and now I'm at 3.7 4K. Awesome. How? I need to upload video this week, and I have no time to make one. Oh, no. Do a live stream. But those are easy. It's a lot easier than producing videos. That's why I've been doing chill streams. By the way, Reason Belief is a friend of the channel. He has an awesome channel, and he also wrote a book as well. Go to Reason Belief's channel, guys. And if you haven't subscribed, like, and do that stuff, show some love over there at Reason Belief. And yeah, let's help them boost those numbers. Let's get the subs up. And also, by the way, as a thank you to, oh boy, now I'm coming up with another senior moment. The channel I was on yesterday. Come on, Gary, with SJ. I should know this. My apologies, SJ. I'm so sorry. It's 3:30 in the morning. It's didn't get much sleep. I'll come up with every excuse under the sun. I don't know why I can't remember your channel name. I remember SJ. With SJ, it is. See if I can find it really quick. Something Truth Matters with SJ. I believe that's it. Let me double check. Truth Matters with SJ. Yes, it is. Truth Matters with SJ. Like I said, had a really good time. And go over there and subscribe and do that. James Day says, I prefer William Staples than William Picard. Laugh out loud. But very nice. Very nice. Thank you. Appreciate that. Got thumbs up from Lino. Thank you. Hey, thumbnail is fire. All right. Thank you. Yeah, it's weird how AI sometimes it doesn't come out very good, looks very artificial and fake. And then other times it just locks in and it's scary. My wife just saw the thumbnail, burst out laughing. Then it worked. It worked. All right. I got some other ones too that I think you'll. One's turned out a little creepy. Don't know if I'm going to actually use it. But I'm not a Star Trek fan. I prefer Star Wars. Star Wars. Maybe we could try to do Star Wars. SoCal, if I do a Star Wars one, I'll use you in it. I try to work you in whenever they have like multiple faces and stuff because you're part of the extended team. By the way, SoCal also has an awesome channel. Please subscribe, like, hit the bell over there. He does debates on the Deuterocanon, Apocrypha, so called, and does some great research. I like the original Star Trek. I do too. I love the overacting by William Shatner, and Leonard Nimoy was born to do Mr. Spock. And although some of the episodes are actually, when you look at them now, they're pretty preachy. Nevertheless, it was fun. The Starform rocks and all the other stuff. By the way, Justify Janice, did you ever see, is it Star Quest? Let me make sure that's right. That doesn't sound right. Something Quest. Boy, I am really having a lot of senior moments this morning. I can't even remember who's in it. Sigourney Weaver's in it. Help me out, guys. She was in Galaxy Quest. That's the name. Justify Janice. If you like Star Trek, the original, you have to see the movie Galaxy Quest. The movie's okay, but it's a parody, and it's a very respectful and funny parody. Never watched any Star Trek. Don't crucify me. Well, that's okay. It's just that much less of cultural milieu that we can share together, but that's fine. The thing is, Star Trek back in the day, I remember like my earliest memories seeing Star Trek on TV as a little kid, and it was so different from any other TV show. I thought it was boring, because I wanted more gunfights and stuff, because I'm a little kid. But I recognize that this program was not like the others on TV, and it was futuristic, which was cool. Yeah. My mom was watching Star Trek once, and it was like a very involved episode. And I think a neighbor was coming around our back. If you're looking at the TV from the living room, there's a back window by the kitchen, so you can see out the back door, out the yard. And the neighbor popped his head in the window to see if anybody was home, scared the daylights out of my mother. And she couldn't watch Star Trek anymore. She just associated that fear. It must have been like an alien episode or something. But it's funny how you associate things, isn't it? Man, need to figure out what to do with my channel during the busy period of my. Yeah, James. That's another. Hey, thank you, James, for reminding me. I almost forgot. Remind me of the title because I always get it wrong. Catholic Apologetics Hub, isn't it? Make sure. Tell me. Yeah, I believe that's it. So, guys, go over there, subscribe, like. They just started out, so every subscription counts, and they had the bad discernment to have me on the channel, which truth matters. Thank you, SoCal. Yep. Yeah, I was thinking about that. Or a lot of Young Frankenstein. Once we get closer to Halloween, I'll do a lot of more Young Frankenstein thumbnails. But yeah, help James his channel take off. They just started, so like I said, every subscription is huge. Chewbacca. See, the AI hates stuff like that, though. Like, I can't make Chewbacca look like William. It looks like somebody pasted a face on Chewbacca. It doesn't work. Can't you but you could like everyone. Yeah. Galaxy Quest. Yes. I like Galaxy Quest. It's one of those movies that there's something wrong with it. And I can't put my finger what it is. But it's editing. They made a mistake in the editing, and it could have been a great movie. Instead, it's just a good movie, but it's become a cult classic. At least here in America, it's become a cult classic. So, oh, you didn't see it. If you're a Chucky fan, Justified Janus, it's almost required that you see it. I think you'll enjoy it. It's like Star Trek adjacent, fun parody type thing. But like I said, they try to respect everybody. So they, you know, sometimes you could do parodies that are insulting and make fun of the audience. Uh, Galaxy Quest actually honors the Trekkie audience because the Trekkie audience actually becomes part of the story, which is like every Trekkie's dream to be on the Starship Enterprise. Yes, it's a hidden gem indeed. Not so hidden though. Like I said, it is a cult classic. There's a lot of people that are just nuts over Galaxy Quest. I keep saying Vision Quest, but it's Galaxy Quest. It is amazing parody. So much love to Star Trek. Yeah, yeah, it was done very well. Original Lost in Space was good. Yeah, it was. I was addicted to that as a kid. Um, Although the series Lost in Space, and we gotta get to the lesson soon. We're running out of time. If you watch the pilot, it was actually a very serious show. It was basically about a Russian agent who is able to. They were going to sabotage this, interstellar um, voyage, right, to who knows where, Alpha Centauri, right, the nearest planet or the nearest star, and it backfires. He falls asleep on the ship, and he throws everything off, and then they're lost in space. But then the series slowly evolves into the sitcom and ultimately becomes so absurd that it becomes the Will, Robot, and Dr. Smith show. And everybody else, they could have just been blown up and it wouldn't make a difference. And I always wonder the original Lost in Space, how the series, if they kept it serious, that would be very interesting. But I think they'd probably run out of material and hence they'd have to go to the comedic stuff. But Lost in Space, definitely a classic, at least the earlier ones. Once you get to the veggie people, I mean, even the cast of Lost in Space realized when they're dressed up like vegetables that this show is off the rails. Um, Childhood memories, yes, going back to yesteryear. Um, Started with William. That's right. Oh, here you go. James Tay's channel, guys. It's in the chat room. Just go over there really quick and do me a favor and sub and ring the bell, do all that stuff. And let's help our brother out. Um, like I said, they made the huge mistake of having an interview with me. So we got to help them out. Since they destroyed the credibility of their channel at the outset, we got to help them out a little bit and get some more subs. Lino says, I was thinking about an alien thumbnail with a xenomorph as Muhammad. Oh, okay. That's interesting. I don't know if you'll be able to do it. Like I said, AI, unless you generate from scratch, you can't do a face swap. David and Chewy would work. Perhaps. Hear me out. Luther as Vader. Yeah, but you would never know who's behind the helmet, right? Now, guys, from what I heard, my wife told me that they're going to remake Spaceballs, the Mel Brooks parody of Star Wars. I tried to do Spaceball thumbnails and it failed. I'm going to try it again because if that comes out, we got to do a parody. Um, I might be Lord Helmet. Space is not real; it's flat Earth. I forgot about that. We got to make adjustments for that. Y'all been falling for space. Yeah, yeah. Good point. Good point. Uh, Finally making Spaceballs too. That's what I heard. I heard it through the grapevine. Don't know if it's true. It's not a remake. No, it's not a remake. It's another episode, I believe. And I know what the subtitle will be. Okay. The subtitle, The Search for More Money. That will be the subtitle. Because I believe that's what Yogurt says. God willing, we'll all meet again in Spaceballs 2, The Search for More Money. There you go. They have to use that. If they don't have that Spaceballs 2 as a subtitle, they blew it. They blew it. Spaceballs was another movie that I thought was close but missed the mark. I don't know. I'm a big Mel Brooks fan, but in fairness to Mel, I mean, he is ancient. I mean, the guy's almost 100 if he's not already 100 years old. Um, his later movies, like Robin Hood, Spaceballs, the characters all sound like Mel. And like with John Candy's lines in Spaceball, that could have been Mel Brooks saying them. It wasn't John Candy. And you don't see that in his earlier movies. So, but yeah, Mel Brooks is brilliant. He is. Totally agree. Okay, guys, enough about this. This is almost like this is what we do on members only. Okay, so now you had a foretaste of what we do on members only. We talk about everything, but that's not what the stream is about. The stream is about Origen of Alexandria, who is also brilliant, like Mel Brooks, but in a different way. Okay, so let's get this. Remove this. Oops. Got the stage. There you go. We have a cliffhanger to resolve. So sorry about the flashes and stuff. All right. Missing the 12. What is going on here? I have my theory. I'm going to give you my theory. The theory could be wrong. But let's figure out what our options are. Now, Origen has his list of 22 books that he explicitly says he's following Hebrew tradition, the 22 books, and he gives 22 Hebrew titles. But he misses the 12 minor prophets. How can we account for that omission? And how does it affect his list? Well, he omits the 12 either because it was a copyist error. For example, maybe Eusebius, because we only have this through Eusebius. He preserves this fragment from Origen. Eusebius maybe his eye slipped, right? Maybe he wasn't paying attention and he accidentally missed the 12. Or maybe Origen and Eusebius had it in their copies, but subsequent copyists had missed it. So perhaps it's another copyist error, just not as close to the source as that. Or maybe Origen omits it. And if he did omit it, did he do it purposely or accidentally? That's, I think, our options, right? It's either Origen had it, but Eusebius missed it, or Origen and Eusebius had it, and a copyist missed it, or Origen missed it. And either he missed it on purpose or he did it accidentally. Okay, so that's our options on the table. Yeah, I got to address that too, James. Thank you. I probably will have to change the PowerPoint. I'm going to add that later because I actually forgot to address that. But that's an interesting little discussion as well. But I'm sure we'll lose a lot of viewers if we get into that. Oh, and Maccabees appearing. Yes, we're going to touch on that. Honestly, I think it was not included. Could have been a Jewish group of a different canon. Okay, well, let's explore that, shall we? Let's look at copyist errors and what we see from the evidence. So could it be a copyist error or Eusebius missed it? When we look at the manuscript evidence from Eusebius and subsequent copies, we find that none of them include the 12 minor prophets. So as far as we can tell from manuscript evidence alone, it is not in Eusebius's copy, except for one. There's only one manuscript that has the 12 in it, and that is from Rufinus. So Rufinus inserts sed et duodecim prophetorium liber unis est. So the 12 prophets is one book. And you can see here, this is a clip from Edward Schwartz, critical text of Eusebius's work. That's it. It's just in Rufinus. No other copy has the minor prophets in it. So as far as we can tell from the evidence, this is not a subsequent copyist error, and it doesn't appear to be in Eusebius either. Now, in regards to Rufinus is known to adjust Origen to make him orthodox. And we're going to see a lot of evidence of tinkering with Origen through Rufinus's translations. So, although he has it in his list, I think scholars don't put a lot of weight on that. It's most likely he noticed it missing and added it himself. So it's a possibility, but I personally think Rufinus was correcting Origen on that point. I don't think it was there. So manuscript evidence points that this is not a subsequent copyist error, and Eusebius did not include it in his copy. And by the way, notice that we're not talking about one word, right? It's not like Esther's missing or Job or a Genesis or a single book title. Because the 12 minor prophets are combined as one book, it's actually fairly lengthy, as you can see here with what Rufinus gives us, right? So I think that mitigates against it being a copyist error. I think it would be more probable it would be if it was a single book title, but he could have the 12 minor prophets all in one book, right? That's almost an entire line. Now, it's true, copyists do miss entire lines. In fact, there is a thing called parabolipsis. Parabolipsis is when a copyist eye kind of skips a line. I'm sure you've probably done that when you're copying by hand something. Your eye accidentally leaves off on one line, skips a line, and starts off on the next line. That would account for this whole line being missing. But I think it kind of rules against it, but it's possible. So I think in terms of probability, I don't think this was a mistake in Eusebius, and I don't think it's a mistake on subsequent copies, because the subsequent copies are pretty uniform, and Eusebius therefore likely didn't have it in his original text. So that leaves us with one possibility, and that is Origen left it out, right? Yeah, so here we go. It's kind of lengthy. And it couldn't have been purposely left out, too. I have to throw this in as well. There is absolutely no reason why the 12 minor prophets were omitted purposely, because ancient Judaism accepted the 12 minor prophets, Rabbinic Judaism accepts the 12 minor prophets, and Christians accepted the 12 minor prophets. There was never any discussion about whether the 12 minor prophets was canonical or sacred. Never. So this cannot be purposeful. It has to be accidental. So like I said, we're dealing with probabilities, and it's possible that it could be a mistake on the part of Eusebius, but I think it had to be Eusebius because subsequent copies aren't in disarray. All you have is Rufinus. Also, here's our little clip from Melito Saris that we did several chill streams ago. Guys, check that out. He's also a very important name that's sometimes brought up. Sometimes he's the first name brought up against the Deuterocanon. In fact, he almost always is. So I stand corrected. Origen's the second name. But in his list, as you can tell, he does list the 12 minor prophets in one book. So there is absolutely no reason to believe that the 12 minor prophets were omitted by Origen on purpose or Eusebius on purpose. So the only option is, in my humble opinion, the highly probable answer is Origen actually made a mistake and he accidentally omitted it. And that is important because if that's true, the explanatory power of it has a benefit that is not in the other options. Okay. So I'll explain what I mean by that. Sometimes when you're looking at different options and all things are equal, sometimes one option will actually explain and resolve difficulties that otherwise would be unresolved. And that's called explanatory power. So sometimes when a solution has extra explanatory power, that is like one grain of sand on the scales, tipping it in favor of that particular option. And that's why I think I'm leaning to Origen accidentally omitting the 12, because it resolves another difficulty if this is true. And it also tells you a little bit about Origen and what this list actually is all about. Origen states explicitly that he intends to reproduce the Hebrew tradition of the 22 books corresponding to 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. And he gives Greek names, the transliterated Hebrew name, and the name's meaning, if applicable. Okay. And here's the strange thing, guys. Even though he omits the 12 minor prophets, he does produce 22 Hebrew names. But those 22 Hebrew names include Maccabees, which he explicitly says is besides the 22. So here's what I think is going on with Origen. Origen accidentally, he's writing his list, right? He's coming up with the Greek title, Hebrew title explanation. He's going through the Old Testament, counting 22 books. He accidentally skips over the 12 minor prophets. He just, oopsie, forgot about them. Okay. Then he comes to the bottom of his list and he realizes that he only has 21 Hebrew names. So he's one short. So, unable to locate which book that he missed, you know, he goes through, he can't figure out which book he missed. Remember how hard that was last chill stream? I asked you guys, what's the book that's missing? It took a long time for you guys to respond, right? Because, you know, it's just hard to figure out, right? And maybe the same thing happened with Origen. He quickly looks over it. He can't find where he missed the book title, but he has 21. He promised 22. He knows the Hebrew title for Maccabees, but he also knows that's not part of the 22. So he appends the list with Maccabees so as to bring the number of Hebrew names to 22. That's my explanation. And why I like this is it accounts for the missing 12 minor prophets, but it also accounts for that real bizarre thing he does at the end where he includes Hebrew Maccabees while at the same time saying it's not part of the 22. That's my theory. I'm sticking to it. I like the extra explanatory power it gives because otherwise it doesn't make a lick of sense why he would include Hebrew Maccabees and at the same time saying it's not part of the 22. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. At least if my scenario is true, if my theory is true, at least then we can say, oh, so that's why he includes Maccabees in his list, because he needs 22 Hebrew names. And he also is honest and he says, this is not the 22, it's outside the 22. And so that's what we have here. So I give you the number of the various books with combinations. You get to 21 with Esther. Origen says, oh, I don't see where I missed a book because Esther's the last book. Oh, I know. I'll put Maccabees in. Besides these, there are Maccabees, which is entitled Sarah Beth Sunil. So that's my theory, guys. Like I said, I like it because of the explanatory power it provides. But this also tells you something about Origen's purpose of making this list. Why was Origen more concerned about reaching 22 book titles that matched the number of letters in the Hebrew alphabet than accurately reproducing the rabbinic list? Right? So if my theory is true, then it seems like Origen was more focused on supplying the 22 book titles rather than actually giving us an accurate list of what the rabbis accept. And I think part of the explanation can be found in Hilary of Poitiers, the Athanasius of the West. Hilary also did a commentary on the Psalms in which he relied almost entirely on Origen. So, since ancient times, readers have recognized Hilary's indebtedness to Origen's commentary on the Psalter. And this dependence extends, it seems, even to Hilary's own canon list. Accordingly, Hilary's list mirrors Origen almost exactly, but whereas Origen had mentioned Maccabees outside the official list, Hilary omits the reference to Maccabees and comments instead that some include Tobit and Judith. That's from Gallagher and Mead. Jerome says regarding this work in his work on Illustrious Men, he says of Hilary, in this work, he imitated Origen and added not a few things of his own. So even Jerome says he's basically just copying from Origen, but he tweaks it with his own stuff. Now, Hilary's list is very interesting, and it's puzzling for Protestant scholars. First, he begins the list by saying this, and I think this is really interesting. So Hilary's, this is his prologue to Psalms. Again, he's very dependent on Origen, and he says this, and this is the cause that the law of the Old Testament is divided into 22 books, that it might agree with the number of letters. Now stop there and think about that. This is the cause, this is the reason why the Old Testament is divided into 22 books. In other words, the division into 22 is something artificial. It's something that's imposed by somebody. And so Hilary says that it might agree with the number of letters. So there's 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. Therefore, let's divide the books. Let's combine different books so we come up with 22 books to match the alphabet. That's basically what he's saying. It's not like these books existed in 22 and then somebody said, hey, we have letters that are in 22 in number. Hilary reverses that order. He says they recognize the letters and then they divide the books to fit the letters. Do you get that? Give me a 1 for yes, 2 for no in the chat room. It's a very important point for Hilary. The division into 22 is artificial. It comes from the outside. It's not like there were 22 books and then they said, hey, there's 22 letters. Rather, they said, hey, there's 22 letters. Let's divide the books into 22. So we'll combine some and we'll make it 22. Okay, you got the point. Good. Yeah, I don't want to belabor that. Then he continues with his list. By the way, this time he includes the 12 prophets, which formed the 16th book. Now, what's really interesting is what he does at the end. Now, remember, he's following Origen, right? He says, to some, it seems good to add Tobias and Judith and thus constitute 24 books according to the Greek alphabet. That's interesting. So if you go by the Hebrew alphabet, it's 22, and those are the books that are listed. And if you want to do the Greek alphabet, which is 24 letters in the Greek alphabet, you could divide into 24 books by adding Tobit and Judith. And he says, to some, this seems good. That is really strange. It's almost like it doesn't matter which books are included. What matters is the numbers and the numbers corresponding to alphabets. Do you see that? Not that Hillary isn't saying that a real life situation. Apparently, there were Jews that did a 24 book competition or computation that included Judith and Tobit. But notice how Hillary is more concerned about alphabets and correspondences of numbers than he is about the objective canon of Scripture, right? It seems like the additional books are almost arbitrary as far as he's concerned. For Hillary, and by extension, possibly Origen as well, the number of books is an artificial construction since the Jews, the traditions of the ancients, as he puts it, divide the corpus into 22 books or 24 book collections, depending on which alphabet they wish to use. And then Gallagher and Mead point this out as well. They say, quote, "It is unclear why Hillary specifies Tobit and Judith here, or to whom he refers as including the two books in order to make up the number 24. No other canon list collected in this volume contains only Tobit and Judith without any of the other Deuterocanonicals. So there is something strange about this. But the point is, it seems like Hillary is more concerned with numbers and letters of the alphabet rather than actually reproducing the accurate canon. Because obviously both canons, the 22 and the 24, according to him, can't both be true because one omits two books and the other includes it. Yeah, the 24 book competition. Yeah, I probably mispronounced it. It's 423, so you got to cut me some slack. The Jews had a competition how best to split the books. That's right. That was funny. Okay, hopefully I'm making sense. So this, by the way, fits perfectly with what we know about Origen, the School of Alexandria, etc., etc. While Gallagher and Mead observation is true, it's also true that no other list links a 24-book computation to the letters of the Greek alphabet. We don't have anyone doing that. They just have 24, but they never link it to the Greek alphabet. The main concern for Hillary, and likely Origen as well, is the mystical correspondence of books and alphabets. And here I think A.E. Brain hits the nail on the head when he describes this list. He says, quote, "We see here an excessive mysticism impelling a man to reject or admit a book for the sole purpose of completing a mystical or a mystic number. This tendency has been brought into patristic thought by Origen and the Alexandrian school." And good morning, Tom. Welcome aboard. It's great to have you with us. And see what I mean? That makes perfect sense, right? When we're looking at Origen, Origen loves allegory. He loves the spiritual meaning of Scripture. So when he's giving us a canon list, it's not to necessarily to be accurate and well, in this case, his accuracy is not the main goal. The main goal is to plumb the depths of this mystical correspondence. That fits in with the Alexandrian school, it fits in with Origen, and it explains Hillary at the same time. So I think A.E. Brain is absolutely correct. I think that's what this list is. That's his main purpose. Now, of course, yes, he is trying to be accurate. He is giving Hebrew tradition. He's not purposely misleading anybody. It was a mistake, an accidental omission. But his main goal was to show that correspondence. That was his main goal. And I think that's why I think the 12 minor prophets is important, because I think that kind of shows why he added Maccabees, and really his whole intent is just to show, hey, there's 24 corresponding to the alphabet, just like Hillary says, or excuse me, 22 corresponding to the alphabet, or as Hillary has it, 22 and 24. So here's perfectly Breen's suggestion of the Alexandrian influence is certainly possible. The Philonic Judaism may have persisted in Alexandria, and allegory was the staple of the Alexandrian exegesis. It would explain Origen's apparent inattention to the accuracy of the contents of his list, Origen's connection of books with Hebrew alphabet, number of letters in the Hebrew alphabet, may have actually come from, and this is interesting, guys. So, where did this correspondence come from? Right? I don't think it's Origen's alone. I think he really did get this from Hebrew tradition, the whole idea of the letters corresponding to books. I think that's rabbinic. So pay attention to the highlighted part here. Origen's connection of books with letters of the Hebrew alphabet may have come from rabbinic mysticism that developed from the adoption of Hebrew within the body, in that body, rabbinic Judaism, and was hyper focused on Hebrew letters. So this was actually a trait of rabbinic Judaism. Earlier, we've mentioned that Rabbi Akiva ben Joseph, his exegesis and the other rabbis that followed used minutia within the Hebrew text to provide biblical authority for his halakhic innovations, right? We talked about that. Remember, that's why we have a standardized Hebrew text for rabbinic Judaism, because Akiva needed everybody to have this text so that they could see how he's reading into it certain rulings, certain ideas. So the Hebrew text is very important. And this produced an, quote, almost mystical concentration on the Hebrew alphabet. That's going to come from a citation I'm going to give in the next slide. It would not be surprising that the connection between the number of books in the Rabbinic Bible and the number of Hebrew letters in the alphabet was part of this body of thought. So I think this whole idea of correspondences is actually rabbinic, okay? And that's also very important for a wider thing of these chill streams is we're kind of tracing the effects of that rabbinic canon that took place in the early second Christian century, how they try to spread it throughout the whole of Judaism in the diaspora in the West. And so what you start seeing is the spread of Hebrewisation within Judaism. Because remember, the diaspora, the Jews outside of Judea or Western Judaism, was Greek speaking. They used the Septuagint, right? In fact, a lot of them didn't know Hebrew and Aramaic, but there were Jews living in the diaspora. And so you have the Aquila translation that's made to replace the Septuagint. And you have this Hebraization. This is a way of bringing about uniformity amongst the whole of Judaism. So not only in Judea, in the East, Babylon and so on, but in the West as well. In that process of Hebraization, I think that shows that it has already reached Alexandria in the early 200s or the beginning of the 3rd century. Now, here's a quote from Albrecht, and they say, quote, during the 55 to 138 CE period, suspicion and hatred of Greek and Greek culture among the Jews increased as Greek became the universal language of Christians and was used to proselytize among the Hellenized Jews, so the Jews of the West. Partly for this reason, perhaps, as Hellenistic Judaism was, in effect, taken over by Christianity, the Septuagint translation of the Hebrew Bible fell into disfavor amongst the Jews in the 2nd century CE, and they cite Schur for this. Then it continues, the rabbis used Hebrew as a tool of social power. After the destruction of the temple, they increased Hebrew usage, that should be not only in the liturgy, homiletics, and law, but also in daily speech. So there is an increase of Hebrew after the destruction of the temple, the 2nd Christian century. The canon of the Hebrew Bible was finally fixed by the rabbis, and much Hebrew liturgy was used to the present day, was created and took new form during this time. Hebrew became firmly established as the essential language of prayer. Then it continues. Some rabbis turned to a mystical concentration on the letters of the Hebrew alphabet with the aim of unlocking the secrets of the universe and influencing divine will. Unquote. So these are two Jewish scholars in this phenomenal two-part article. And unfortunately, I omitted the title. I'll have to give you the title later on. But notice what they're saying here. They're saying one of the ways in which that new rabbinic Judaism that was formed at the beginning of the second Christian century, how they make uniformity throughout the whole of Judaism, including the diaspora, was to replace Greek culture, Greek prayers, the Greek Septuagint with Hebraization. So Hebrew becomes the way in which all Jews are united. The sacred book is Hebrew. There's a Greek text to replace the Septuagint that's very literal and follows the Hebrew. And I think that's what Origen's showing us, is that Alexandria, which early on was more like Philo, lots of allegory, uses Greek language, believed that inspiration continued even till his day. Rabbinic Judaism reaches Alexandria because, by the way, Origen wrote his commentary on the Psalms while in Alexandria, is a very early writing for him, that it's already starting to make inroads. And that's why Origen does this list. He's letting people know about this mystical correspondences. So it's not so much for apologetics, I think. I think it was more he's just disclosing what he's learning from the rabbis with this new Hebraization that's occurring in Alexandria. Hope that makes sense. You know, when it's 4:30 in the morning, sometimes I'm not sure if I make sense. So hopefully this is all coming together for you. Hillary's copies of Origen's he copies Origen's mysticism, but perhaps fails to understand the import. The Hebraization of the diaspora in Poitiers had not yet occurred. Okay. So St. Hilary in his location hasn't had this Hebraization or uniformity. Okay. So in modern day France, it hasn't reached that far east, or excuse me, that far west. However, in Alexandria, this is like when that process is already beginning. And we see that with Origen. So the Hebraization of the diaspora in Poitiers has not yet occurred. The Jews there spoke Greek and used the Septuagint, and they accepted the wider collection of sacred writings than Eastern Judaism. He therefore expands Origen's list to include the Greek alphabet corresponding to the Greek letters, and that was accepted in his area. So there were Jews out there in Poitiers at this time using Tobit and Judith as canonical scripture. And he says, hey, if you're going to do a 24 book, then why not include these two books? So I think that's another area where there's some explanation what's going on. Otherwise, why would Hilary give this computation like Gallagher and Mead point out? Because it's very odd, very odd. So if this is so, Origen provides evidence of rabbinic influence may have begun in Alexandria sometime anterior to 220s, while the Jews in Hilary's area was familiar with what he wrote and was still untouched by rabbinic norms. So there you go. So this is like super in-depth, guys. None of this you really need to know. But I just trying to give you, like, this is where I am in my research. That's what I think is going on with Origen. There's other peculiarities too with Origen's list. And some of this might make sense, some of it might not. If you guys watch David Zavaras's masterful series he does on the Apocrypha Apocalypse, in regards to the book of Ezra's or Greek Ezra, because this will make sense in that context. Steve Christie and Norm Geisler and a few other Protestant apologists tried to resuscitate an argument that has been dormant within Protestant apologetics for a number of years, and that is that the North African councils actually include a book that was not in Trent's canon, namely Greek Ezra's or the Book of Ezra's. And they claim that when the council says Ezra's two books, that's actually referring to Greek Ezra and the combined books of Ezra and Nehemiah. And David does a great job debunking it. He shows all the evidence. Definitely check it out on the Apocrypha Apocalypse. Just type in Greek Ezra or something to that effect. If you see a series with David, that's the one you need to watch. So I just want to point this out for those who are familiar with that series. It's important to note that Origen likewise sees Ezra and Nehemiah as two books that the Jews combine into one. And I think this lends credence to the fact North Africa, of course, this is a Christian council, would accept Ezra says two books would be canonical Ezra and Nehemiah. Because the Jews combined them, the Christians didn't. And in fact, Origen quotes Nehemiah as the second book of Ezra. So this, I think, is really good evidence that the North African councils included the two canonical books that were affirmed at Trent. They didn't include Greek Ezra. Excuse me. Okay, so that doesn't make sense, guys. That's fine. Watch David's series. Like I said, he does a fantastic job. There's something else that we need to talk about. I talked about a little bit last chill stream, and then I think we're going to close. And that is the retention of Aramaic text within Rabbinic Bible. This is fascinating, guys. If Hebraization and the Rabbinic normative text had not yet come to Poitiers, Hilary's inclusion of Tobit and Judith may indicate that there was a tension within the Rabbinic Bible. Origen was able to produce the Hebrew name for Maccabees, stating that it was outside of the 22 books, but this means outside of rabbinic scripture, right? This does not mean outside of rabbinic scripture. So what am I saying? What Origen witnesses by giving us the Hebrew Maccabees is that the rabbinic Judaism is still copying Maccabees. And I pointed this out last chill stream. Remember, it was rabbinic Judaism coming out of the East that knew Aramaic and Hebrew, right? Christians didn't use it, except for maybe like Syriac Christians or something like that. But Christians, by and large, they had their Bibles in Latin and Greek. They might know a little Hebrew, but not much. But they wouldn't be copying Maccabees in Hebrew. They would just be copying Maccabees according to the Septuagint. So the fact that here in Alexandria, that Origen had in his little hands a copy in Hebrew of Maccabees shows that Rabbinic Judaism is still copying Maccabees. Okay? It is still copying Maccabees. Interesting, isn't it? And also, the Hebrew copy would be consonantal. In other words, it'd only be consonants. It wouldn't have vowel points. That it was later added by the Masoretes for the proto-canonical books. And so how you read Hebrew when it's all consonants is you have to memorize the vowels, where the vowels go and what these words mean, which means that not only was Maccabees copied in Hebrew, but there was this interpretive tradition to read it, to understand Maccabees in Hebrew. That says a lot. So where would they keep this writing? Would they keep Maccabees like in a separate scroll placed in the back of the synagogue or in somebody's glove compartment in their car? Where did they put this Hebrew Maccabees? What was it part of? Well, I I think it probably was copied along with the canonical books as part of the rabbinic Bible, but it was not understood to be authoritative. So it's still being copied in Jewish Bibles, kind of like how the Apocrypha, so called, was copied in Protestant Bibles. It still was between the covers, but it was with the understanding that it it was with the understanding it wasn't authoritative. And I think we find clues of that elsewhere. For example, Epiphanius of Salamis, writing about 392, says that the Jews had acquired, quote unquote, the proto-canonical books with Baruch and the epistle. And he says, and they, the Jews, have two more books, disputed canonicity, the Wisdom of Sirach and the Wisdom of Solomon, apart from certain other Apocrypha. Excuse me, I'm getting a tickle in my throat. So where did he put it? Right? Where did he put it? So these books, I think, were amongst the sacred books of the scribes, right? But they weren't accorded authority. And that's why he says they have these books. A few years later in Bethlehem, Jerome speaks about Aramaic copies of Tobit and Judith within the Jewish Hagiographa, which is the third division of their Bible, the Ketuvim, or the writings. And he says, but their authority was denied. So again, Origen says, or excuse me, Jerome says, the rabbis have these books in the category of the writings, but they don't accord it as authoritative. In rabbinic sources, we find Rabbi Bar Mara, who lived from 320 350, quoting Sirach as coming from the Ketuvim, that third division of the Bible. All this suggests that there was a larger collection of text, namely Tobit, Judith, Baruch, the Epistle, Sirach, Wisdom, and Maccabees, that was continued to be copied, read, and even placed within the third division of the Scriptures within Semitic-speaking Jewish communities for decades after the establishment of the 22-book norm. Now, their authority was denied, but nevertheless, they continued to be copied, and they were still part of the Rabbinic Bible, even to the middle of the 4th century. That's what the evidence suggests. And if that's true, guys, then we have something, a very interesting possibility here. Were these books added to the Rabbinic Bible? In other words, was there only 22 books? And then the rabbis said, hey, wouldn't it be great if we add these books along with it, put in the covers? They're not authoritative, but we'll just add it there because it'd be nice to have these books handy. Or the other option would be these books were already considered sacred. Their sacredness was denied by the rabbis, but they retained these books, but they denied their authority. In other words, maybe Rabbinic Judaism is doing exactly what early Protestantism did. Remember, Martin Luther did not remove the Deuterocanonical books from the Bible, and the early reformers didn't either. Why? They didn't believe it was the Word of God. They weren't equal to Scripture. So why include them in their Bibles? Well, there's a couple reasons why, but I think the most obvious reason is this, that early Protestants knew that these books were part of the Bible. They knew it was Scripture in some sense. So to remove these books would have been too radical of a change. So instead, what the Protestant reformers did was they retained them between the covers of the Bible, so everybody's happy, but they put in an appendix and they put a note on saying it's not to be held equal, you can't use it to confirm doctrine, but it still remained in Protestant Bibles up until the 1820s when the tide really began to turn against these books being in Protestant Bibles. But it took a couple of centuries, okay? I think the same things occurred with Rabbinic Judaism. I think what happened was these books were considered sacred, okay? And when the rabbis made their 22 book canon, they couldn't just drop them cold because Jews knew that these were sacred writings. At least some of them believed this. So instead, what the rabbis did was they continued to copy these. It continued to place them within the Tanakh, that the threefold division: law, prophets, and writings. But they, with the understanding that it wasn't authoritative. And then once a couple of centuries pass on, and these books kind of start slowly falling into disuse, and then eventually uniformity is achieved, and they get rid of the books without too much fanfare. So I think it's basically mapping on with what we see in Protestantism. I mean, it makes perfect sense to me. I'd like to know what you think. I mean, it's just my theory. I could be wrong. But when I'm looking at the evidence on the table, that's what seems to be going on in my mind. And like I said, I'd love to hear what you guys think as well. So I think we're going to park it right there. This is a good place. I wish I had another cliffhanger to make you come back to the next chill stream, but unfortunately I don't. I think we're going to, I wish we could, I think we're going to, I think we're going to finish out a little bit. Yeah. I think what we're going to do next time we come back, we're going to look at a controversy that Origen had with Julius Africanus. Julius Africanus says that he thought Deuterocanon was spurious because it's not part of the Hebrew text. So here we have Hebrew Verite raising its head back in Origen's day before Jerome. We're going to see what Jerome has to say to Julius Africanus, and whether or not Jerome, or whether or not Origen believed that the Deuterocanon was scripture, but only for edification and not for confirming doctrine. I think that's what we're going to do next. So there's a cliffhanger for you guys. So before we go, please subscribe, like, hit the bell. We totally appreciate it. Tell your friends about the channel. Let's try to grow this. Please share our videos wherever, if you want to put it on your thing or Facebook, or share it in social media. Non-Catholics don't hear the other side of the story, and that's what we are, the other side of the story. Any comments or suggestions or thoughts in the chat room, guys? Put in now. And we got to come up with a secret word. James, JT, James, you haven't, usually you're the first one out of the gate to suggest the secret word. Here, I'll put the thumbnail up, and best thumbnail, OAT. Oh, awesome. Thank you. I'll put the thumbnail up. Sometimes this helps. Here we go. How come it's not? There we go. Enjoy this immensely. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I feel like a total nerd. Hey, join the crowd, Mukau. Thank you for coming on. Okay, guys, this is your opportunity to flex in the chat room. Show everybody that you made it to the very end of the chill stream awake, unlike Sam Shamoon, who's probably way off in La La Land. But we need to do a secret word. So what's the secret word? James Tay, you're the guy with the secret word. Make a suggestion, or any of you. It doesn't have to be on the thumbnail, but sometimes thumbnails help with a secret word. Excuse me. Anybody? Why don't we do, since no one has any suggestion, why don't we do data, like Commander Data? How about that? Because Picard, everybody's going to spell it different. But we could all spell data. So that's going to be the secret word, guys. I want you to put down in the chat room to flex with everybody, to show them you made it to the end. Put down the word data. That means you made it, and you could show off. All right. How about resurrection? Too late. We're doing data. All right, data it is. All right, guys. Don't forget, subscribe, like, hit the bell. Thank you for all your support. God bless, and I hope you all have a fantastic day. Bye-bye, everyone.